Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you today. Robbie, what do we have?
Well, Team Rising is with us to discuss the damning text messages revealed by Mark Meadows from January 6th that came to light during a hearing yesterday. And Brianna Joy Gray will weigh in on the Biden administration's decision to restart student loan payments in February.
But first, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin and President Biden held talks yesterday to negotiate Build Back Better. Manchin reportedly talked about his concerns about debt and inflation, but didn't take a hard line on saying whether or not he would further delay the bill. When asked by reporters if the $2 trillion bill could pass by Christmas, Manchin replied, quote, anything is possible. Instead, he's still engaged. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer reiterated what he's been saying for weeks, that the Senate will vote on BBB before Christmas.
BBB before Christmas.
The BBBA. Yes, so I still think there's a decent chance that Schumer will try. Manchin is saying that, Manchin's big thing is like, look, this, if you count this over 10 years and you extend everything that's in it for that whole 10 years, then it's a massive bill, because you've narrowed the child tax credit down to 1 year. And so Manchin sees himself a year from now having to go back onto the Senate floor that much closer to his reelection, and then having to either re-up or destroy the child tax credit a year from now.
Which is not appealing.
Right, neither of those
Right.
from his perspective are appealing. He would probably rather it go at least through into 2025, which was the original plan, which then takes it past his reelection, as if structurally West Virginia won't be like so far out of reach that Manchin's like completely unelectable anyway. But anything's possible. Manchin has held on for this long. He's not giving up hope just yet. And so if you have to then extend it into 2025, then the money, and you don't raise the price tag, then the money has to come from somewhere else. I'm sure Manchin will be like, well, there's all that climate money. We don't need that. Coal works just fine.
Yeah.
Might be a little expensive and destroy the planet, but what's your guess? Do they get this done by Christmas?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I think so. It seems like that's just the way the wind's blowing, and a lot of it seems like we moved on a little bit to the kind of news cycle, like freak out about how massive it is. The heat's off, the pressure feels off a little bit. It's going to be off even more so as Christmas gets closer, so I bet they do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Another piece of news we want to discuss this morning, the Supreme Court turned away 2 emergency requests Monday from New York healthcare workers to block the state's vaccine mandate. Justices Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas dissented. The emergency appeals were filed by doctors, nurses, and other medical workers who say that the mandate allowed exemptions for people with medical objections, but not for people with religious objections. The court had previously turned away healthcare workers in Maine who filed a similar challenge, with the same 3 justices dissenting.
Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports that some of the largest hospital systems in the U.S. are dropping vaccine requirements after a federal judge temporarily halted Biden's vaccine mandates, the goal being to ease labor shortages that plagued the industry even before the pandemic. As of September, 30% of workers at more than 2,000 hospitals across the country surveyed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention were unvaccinated. And so they're facing the choice of, would we rather have somebody who's unvaccinated coming to work or not have that person at all?
Right.
And so when we talk about the kind of power of full economy, of full employment, kind of giving workers more power, one of the things workers can do with that power is say no to a vaccine.
Yeah.
And they can't be easily replaced. And it's particularly when you're 2 years into a pandemic and the healthcare system has just, wrung itself dry of nursing talent and other health professionals who are they're just burnt completely out.
I have to say I looked a little bit at what Gorsuch wrote, this 14-page dissent, and to say I agree with it, which is not surprising. I tend to agree with Gorsuch the most of all the justices, but and this is a great post on it at Reason.com, the website for Reason, where I work, by Josh Blackman, who's a law professor for the Volokh Conspiracy, this legal blog at Reason, and he's saying that it's Governor Hochul's statements about religion seem manifestly more hostile than the standard set in the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision. So why the...
What did she say?
So she said, like, she's opining on what religious people should believe. She's saying, like, well, the Pope said you're supposed to get vaccinated, so how could any Catholic disagree? And, all of you, yes, I know you're vaccinated, you're the smart ones, but there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know who they are. There were statements about religion and very like, well, this is what religious people are supposed to be, supposed to believe, but you're the governor of New York, not the high priestess of whatever. So it's very, the idea that they would not hear this case at all, I think was kind of, I'm skeptical, but.
Right. I mean, and it's wrong of her to argue it on religious grounds.
Right.
Like, the question should be, is there a religious exemption, yes or no?
Right.
If there is, and then you don't necessarily have to just justify it. Like,
right.
That's the whole point of a religion. You're going to rationally argue with someone. Well, creating the world in 6 days and then resting on the seventh. Like, he's so almighty, why do you need to rest?
Yeah.
Like talking to somebody who's going to out-rationalize.
That's precisely what the government cannot and should not.
Right, no, so stop. Like, it's religion. It is impenetrable to reason.
Right.
That's the whole point of faith. That's what faith is.
Right.
So you can't argue your way through it. Be like, well, according to the Pope, you should take your vaccine. Now, certainly, according to the Pope, you should take your vaccine is a fine public message, but it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not a religious exemption can constitutionally apply to the vaccine mandate. And I think the court is fine to say no. Like, we don't have religious exemptions in general to laws. Like, this is a law, speed limit's 55 for everybody. So that's interesting. There are all sorts of other arguments that you can make, but I don't think a religious exemption in this one is really going to get much ground, and so Hochul shouldn't even have gone there. Yeah,
I was surprised they couldn't get Kavanaugh and Barrett to agree as well with Gorsuch and get an actual.
It's hard. It's very, very hard to get carve-outs to the laws for religious exemptions, because once you start doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to be, well, what's a religious belief and what's not? Right. It gets to be a very nebulous question. Well, why are we making exceptions for, religion? Right. So the Bill of Rights does it, obviously, but then the government sort of gets to define what count. Like, does Jedi count as a religion? Like this kind of age-old debate,
the Rastafarians,
right? Yeah, no,
the ayahuasca churches.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, I'm for that, but anyway.
Yeah. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson confirmed the first death from the Omicron variant. The new variant now accounts for 20% of cases in the UK and 44% in London alone, according to the BBC, though early signs still show the new variant is relatively more mild. Here in the US, we've passed 50 million recorded COVID cases, and with case counts rising to roughly 120,000 a day. Yikes. The New York Times reports that the tragic toll the pandemic's had on our older Americans, 1 in 100 elderly Americans have died from COVID. Terrible. Yeah, terrible. Yeah. I mean, it's again, it is, it's killing a lot of people at the end of their lives, but still people who might have had 5 or 10 more good, healthy years that they've been robbed of, and that their families and loved ones have been robbed of that time with them. So it's just.
And you're starting to hear more and more about people in their 40s and 50s. Yeah. With
bad health complications often.
But with children.
Right.
And who otherwise could have had 30, 40 years. Left in their lives. And also you never know, how many years you're going to have left in your life. But it is amazing how kind of inured we've gotten to 1,000 to 2,000 people dying every single day.
Right.
Of this. It's pretty incredible.
It is horrible, and it can go the other way too with elderly, with grandparents. If we're locked down and can't see them for 2 years, what if that was the last 2 years you had with them anyway? So there are hard decisions to be made, but it's just ghastly and just awful. But
it is.
But we're hoping it's getting better, and we'll finally be out of this thing soon. And next, we'll tell you what's on our radars. Stay tuned for that.